All right, everyone, welcome back to Talk Tickers. Earnings season is in full swing, and you know what that means.
Time for another deep dive.
That's right. And today we're going to be dissecting Magnite's Q3 2024 earnings call.
Yeah, Magnite, for those unfamiliar, is a big player in the ad tech space.
Huge.
Essentially, connecting those who create online content with those who want to advertise on it.
Right. And their stock performance after this release is making some noise.
Up almost 9%.
It was pretty impressive.
Definitely catches your eye.
Yeah. We're not here to just chase headlines. We're going deeper beyond the numbers.
Beyond the numbers.
To understand what's really driving Magnite's success.
What does this tell us about the future of online advertising? What does it mean for you? That's what we're here to figure out.
I guess anyone can look at a stock chart. But what's fascinating is how these numbers translate into actual strategy.
Right.
How is that strategy playing out in a rapidly changing market?
And take CTV, for example, connected TV. That's the real powerhouse behind Magnite's growth this quarter.
Okay, so CTV is king. We're all streaming more these days, but it's not just about being in the right place at the right time.
Right.
What makes Magnite's position in CTV so strong? They work with some big names, Netflix, Disney, but so do lots of other ad tech companies.
It's about the kind of partnerships they're building. These aren't just quick handshake deals.
No.
They're deep strategic collaborations. Magnite is becoming essential to how these streaming giants make money from their content.
And that Disney deal, that's a whole other level.
That's huge.
All right, let's break down this Disney deal. It's not just about expanding to new regions. It's about tapping into new types of content. Yep. Live sports podcasts. It seems like Magnite is thinking beyond just traditional TV shows and movies.
Exactly. They're anticipating where audiences are going next. We're consuming content across so many different platforms, and Magnite is making sure that they're there at every turn.
Right.
Think about it. Disney trusting Magnite to handle ads for live sports. That's huge. Live sports are a goldmine for advertisers because people still watch them live, which means they can't skip the ads.
That's a really good point. So being present across these platforms is key, but Magnite is also talking about using AI to lower their costs, especially in what they call their DV Plus segment. Now, I know DV Plus covers display, video, and mobile, but it seems like they're doing something unique here.
Absolutely. Their cost per ad request is down about 30% year over year. That's not just good luck. That's a sign of serious operational efficiency.
Yeah.
They're leveraging technology to stay lean and profitable, even as the advertising world gets more complex.
Makes sense.
It's a smart move because it gives them a competitive edge.
Okay, so they're efficient. They're in the right places.
Yeah.
But what about data? That's the lifeblood of online advertising, but it's also a minefield these days with all the privacy concerns.
Absolutely.
Magnite even mentioned that CTV and DV Plus have different data dynamics. What does that even mean?
They're recognizing that a one-size-fits-all approach to data simply won't work anymore.
Right.
And it's interesting because they see DV Plus as being more reliant on third-party data, while CTV leans towards first-party data. It's almost like they're preparing for two different futures.
So they're hedging their bets. In a way, it sounds like they're trying to stay flexible as the whole data privacy landscape keeps shifting.
Exactly. That's a key takeaway here. Magnite is showing that they can adapt to different data strategies, which is a big advantage in this environment.
Right.
And speaking of adapting their move into what they call commerce media, is also really interesting that partnership with United Airlines is a prime example.
Okay, commerce media, you're going to have to break this down for me.
Sure.
What is it, and why is Magnite jumping into this space?
Think about it this way. You're browsing for flights on United's website, and suddenly you see a targeted ad for travel insurance or a hotel deal.
Okay.
That's commerce media in action, integrating advertising directly into the online shopping experience.
So it's about meeting people right at the point of purchase. Clever.
Exactly.
But how does this fit into what Magnite already does?
That's the brilliant part. They're leveraging their existing strengths in video ad serving and programmatic advertising to tap into a completely new market. They're not reinventing the wheel. They're taking what they do well and applying it to a new opportunity.
And I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. Magnite is riding the CTV wave. They're getting smart with data, and now they're exploring new avenues like commerce media. It sounds like they've got a lot going for them. But let's zoom in on some of the specifics. You know, I always love the nitty-gritty details. They kept mentioning this thing called curation.
Yes.
What is that, and why is it such a big deal for them?
Curation is all about packaging ad inventory in a smarter way. It's about going beyond basic demographics and using audience data to create really specific targeted segments that are incredibly attractive to advertisers.
So instead of just selling ads to men age 18-24, they're creating segments like avid gamers who drink energy drinks and wear cool sneakers. I'm just trying to paint a picture here.
You got it. It's about getting granular and finding those niche audiences that advertisers are willing to pay a premium to reach.
Right.
And because Magnite works with so many different publishers, they can aggregate those niche audiences into something really valuable.
Ah, that's where their scale comes in. They have the data to back up these targeted segments. But why is this curation thing so important now?
Because the future of advertising is all about personalization and relevance. Think about it. Third-party cookies are going away, which means advertisers need new ways to reach the right people. And with curation, Magnite is basically saying, we can help you do that even without cookies.
That's pretty impressive. It seems like they're not just adapting to a changing landscape. They're shaping it. And they're seeing real results, too. Over 100% growth in revenue from curation year over year. That's a pretty strong signal that they're onto something big.
Absolutely. It shows they have a deep understanding of the forces at play in online advertising, and they're proactively positioning themselves for success in a cookieless world.
Speaking of success, we can't talk about Magnite without talking about their partnership with Netflix. That seems like a major win, especially as Netflix ventures further into the world of advertising.
It's a huge vote of confidence in Magnite's technology.
Yeah.
Remember, Netflix is still relatively new to the advertising game, but they clearly see Magnite as a key partner in building their ad business.
And Magnite seems confident that this partnership will be a major revenue driver for them in the coming years. They even mentioned it potentially becoming their biggest customer by 2025.
Wow. That's a bold statement.
It is, but it's not entirely surprising. Netflix is a global giant, and as they expand their ad-supported offerings internationally, Magnite will be right there with them.
Yeah.
It's a classic example of how strategic partnerships can fuel massive growth.
This is what makes listening to these earnings calls so valuable, folks. It's not just about the numbers themselves. It's about understanding the story behind those numbers. What are the trends shaping the industry? What are the key partnerships and strategies driving growth? That's what we're trying to uncover here. Exactly. Magnite seems to be at the forefront of many of these trends, making smart decisions that are paying off. And their management team clearly has a vision for the future.
Speaking of vision, let's go back to that Disney expansion for a moment. Adding live sports podcasts, it's a big deal for Magnite.
It's a big deal.
But it also says something about Disney's strategy, doesn't it?
It does. It shows that even traditional media giants are fully embracing streaming and programmatic advertising. They're trusting Magnite to handle their most valuable content, live sports, news, and more.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the content itself. Magnite's technology is becoming more deeply integrated into Disney's operations.
So it's becoming a much tighter relationship, almost like a symbiosis.
Yeah.
They're not just working together.
Right.
They're becoming increasingly reliant on each other.
That's a great way to put it. It's a sign of a truly strategic partnership, one that goes beyond simple transactions. They're building a shared future, which is pretty remarkable when you think about the different worlds they come from.
All right, so we've got a company with strong CTV growth, smart data strategies, expansion into new markets, and deep partnerships with industry giants. Magnite seems to be checking all the boxes.
Checking all the boxes.
But are there any red flags here? Is there anything that makes you hesitate?
Well, no investment is without risk.
Right.
The advertising market is inherently cyclical, and it's definitely sensitive to the overall economy. If we hit a rough patch, Magnite's growth could slow down.
That's a fair point. Even with all this diversification, they're still heavily reliant on the programmatic advertising market, which is constantly evolving. It's a fast-paced game, and things could change quickly.
Exactly. They need to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to data privacy, ad fraud, and all the other challenges facing the ad tech ecosystem.
Right.
They can't afford to get complacent.
But from what we're seeing, they seem to be playing the game pretty well.
Yeah.
They're making smart moves, they're innovating, and their management team seems to have a clear vision for the future. So far, so good.
I agree. They're not resting on their laurels. They're actively investing in innovation and staying ahead of the trends, which bodes well for their long-term prospects. It'll be interesting to see how they continue to evolve.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, there's one area I want to explore further: Magnite's growing focus on live sports. You mentioned earlier how valuable live sports are to advertisers.
Right.
But what makes Magnite so well suited to capitalize on this opportunity?
It comes down to a few key things. First, their technology can handle the real-time ad delivery that live sports require.
Okay.
It's a very demanding environment, and not every ad tech platform can handle it smoothly.
So They've got the tech chocks.
Yes.
But what else? They're not the only ones with real-time ad delivery capabilities.
Right. But they also have the relationships with the major streaming players who are increasingly broadcasting live sports. That Disney expansion is a prime example. They're now handling live sports ad delivery for ESPN and ABC News.
Okay, so they have the technology and they have the partnerships. What's the big takeaway here? Why should we care about Magnite's focus on live sports?
Because it could be a sign of much bigger things to come. Think about it. What if Magnite becomes the go-to ad platform, not just for individual networks, but for entire sports leagues?
Yeah, that would be a game changer that would give them a dominant position in one of the most valuable segments of the advertising market.
Exactly. And it's not just about traditional sports leagues. They're also expanding into esports, which is another rapidly growing market with a highly engaged audience.
So they're playing the long game here. It's not just about the immediate wins. It's about positioning themselves for the future of sports advertising. That's pretty smart.
It is. It's a reminder that we need to look beyond the quarterly numbers and consider the broader strategic moves that companies are making. It's not just about what they're doing today. It's about where they're going tomorrow.
Well said. Now, before we move on to part 2, where we'll unpack even more insights from this earnings call, we need to remind everyone of the golden rule.
This is not financial advice.
Absolutely. We're just two podcast hosts geeking out on earnings calls. Please don't base your investment decisions on anything we say here. Do your own research, talk to a financial advisor, and all that good stuff.
But hey, let's have some fun with it, right?
Yeah.
What if we were giving financial advice? What kind of bold, outrageous, but plausible trade would you make based on what we've learned about Magnite so far?
Ooh, that's a good one. Given their strength in CTV and live sports, I'd say go long on Magnite A&D, short on a traditional media company that's struggling to adapt to the streaming world.
Now you're talking. High risk, high reward, something to think about.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the bigger picture and identifying those companies that are truly positioned for the future. And on that note, we'll wrap up part 1 of our deep dive into Magnite's Q3 2024 earnings call. Be sure to join us for part 2, where we'll dig even deeper into their strategy and explore some of the key takeaways for investors.
You know what really strikes me about Magnite is how they navigate the complexities of the ad tech landscape.
Right.
It's a jungle out there.
Oh, yeah.
So many moving parts, different players, platforms, technologies.
It's enough to make your head spin. But Magnite seems to cut through the noise and focus on what matters most, delivering value to both publishers and advertisers.
Absolutely.
That sounds simple, but it's incredibly difficult to execute.
Exactly. And a big part of that is their emphasis on building strong relationships. It's not just about providing technology. It's about truly understanding their partners' needs and working together towards shared goals.
Like with that United Airlines partnership we discussed earlier. It's more than just a tech deal. It's about Magnite, helping United tap into a whole new revenue stream. They're acting as a strategic advisor, not just a vendor.
Precisely. It's a win-win situation. And speaking of winning, their DV Plus segment seems to be defying the odds while others are struggling. Magnite is actually seeing growth in this area.
It is impressive they mentioned using AI and machine learning to boost efficiency and performance. That 30% reduction in cost per ad request is a testament to their tech capabilities. But they're not just optimizing what they already have, right?
Right. They're actively exploring new formats and opportunities within DV. Plus, think native advertising audio podcasts, even digital out of home, they're casting a wide net.
It's a smart strategy. They're diversifying their offerings and making sure they're present across all the different ways people consume content these days. It ties back to that be where the audience is mentality we talked about.
Exactly. Their omni-channel approach, spanning both CTV and DV+, gives them a holistic view of the advertising landscape, allowing them to provide more comprehensive solutions to their partners.
Okay, I want to circle back to data privacy for a moment. It's a huge issue in ad tech, and it feels like there's a new headline every day about consumer data being misused.
It's true.
How is Magnite tackling this challenge? Are they walking the walk, or is it just lip service?
They're taking it very seriously. They understand that consumer trust is paramount, and they're committed to using data responsibly and transparently.
But how are they actually doing that? It's one thing to say you care about data privacy, but it's another thing to actually put those words into action.
Well, they're actively involved in industry initiatives focused on developing privacy-enhancing technologies.
Okay.
They're also investing in solutions that allow for data collaboration without compromising user privacy. Things like clean rooms.
Okay, back up for a second. Clean rooms.
Sure.
What are those?
Imagine a secure environment where different companies can pool their data without actually sharing the raw data itself.
Okay.
It allows for insights and targeting, but without exposing sensitive personal information. It's like a virtual vault for data collaboration.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So they're not just throwing their hands up and saying data privacy is too hard.
Yeah.
They're actively seeking solutions that benefit both advertisers and consumers.
Exactly. And that proactive approach is essential for any company operating in the ad tech space.
Yeah.
Consumers are becoming much more aware of how their data is being used, and they're demanding greater control and transparency. Companies that ignore this reality are going to be left behind.
It's not just about avoiding fines and bad press. It's about building a brand that people trust, and that trust is ultimately what will drive long-term success.
Couldn't agree more. Now, shifting gears a bit, I found their comments on the evolution of programmatic advertising quite intriguing, particularly in the CTV space.
Yeah, they seem very optimistic about programmatic and CTV, but there's still a lot of talk about direct deals and private marketplaces. Are those approaches fading away, or is it more nuanced than that?
It's definitely more nuanced. What Magnite is emphasizing is that even within those direct deals and private marketplaces, programmatic technology is playing an increasingly vital role.
So it's not an either situation.
It's not.
Programmatic is becoming the underlying infrastructure for a wide range of ad transactions, regardless of how the deal is structured. It's becoming the standard.
Exactly. And this is where Magnite's expertise in both ad serving and programmatic exchange technology gives them a real edge. They're not just facilitating the transaction.
Right.
They're providing the tools and insights to make those transactions more efficient and effective.
They're making the whole process smarter in a way.
Right. And they're also playing a crucial role in helping publishers transition from those traditional direct sales models to more automated, data-driven approaches. It's a win-win for everyone involved.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So they're riding the programmatic wave and helping to shape it. Which brings me back to something else they emphasized, curation. Can you walk us through that again and why it matters so much?
It's all about leveraging data to create more valuable audience segments. Think about it like this. Instead of just selling ads to women aged 25-34, they can target avid travelers who enjoy luxury experiences and are likely to book a cruise in the next 6 months.
Okay.
It's about moving beyond broad demographics and crafting precise, targeted offerings that resonate with advertisers.
So they're basically saying, forget about mass marketing. We can help you reach the exact people who are most likely to be interested in your product or service. That's a powerful proposition.
Exactly. And they can do this because of their massive reach across thousands of publishers. They have the data to identify those niche audiences that are otherwise difficult to reach.
This is a game changer for publishers, right?
Absolutely.
It allows them to command higher prices for their ad inventory because they're offering something much more valuable than just raw eyeballs.
Absolutely. It's about moving from a volume-based approach to a value-based approach. And Magnite is providing the tools and expertise to make that happen.
Okay, let's zoom out for a moment and consider the competitive landscape. Magnite is clearly a leader in ad tech, but they're not the only player.
Not at all.
Who are they up against, and what are their key advantages in this crowded space?
It's a crowded market for sure. You've got large established companies like Google and The Trade Desk, as well as smaller, more agile startups constantly popping up. It's a very dynamic environment.
So what sets Magnite apart from the pack? What are their secret weapons?
Well, one of their biggest assets is their independence. Unlike some of their competitors, they're not tied to any specific media platform or technology.
Okay.
This allows them to remain neutral and focus on providing the best possible solutions for their partners, regardless of who those partners might be.
So they're like Switzerland in the ad tech world.
Exactly.
Neutral and playing by their own rules.
They're a trusted intermediary, not a competitor, and that neutrality is increasingly valuable in a market where consolidation and walled gardens are becoming more prevalent.
Right.
Publishers and advertisers are wary of being locked into a single platform.
It's like they're the anti-walled garden. They're all about openness, transparency, and collaboration that has to be appealing to a lot of companies.
It is, and on top of that, they have a strong focus on innovation.
Yeah.
They're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible in ad tech, experimenting with new technologies and approaches. They're not afraid to try new things and take risks.
Like their work with AI and machine learning, for example, they're not just throwing buzzwords around. They're actually using these technologies to drive real business value.
Absolutely. And their focus on curation is another example of their innovative spirit. They're not just following trends, they're creating them. And that's essential in an industry as dynamic and fast-moving as ad tech. If you're not innovating, you're falling behind.
Okay, let's zoom back in and talk about a couple of specific areas where Magnite is making waves. First up, their partnership with Netflix.
Yeah.
This is a pretty big deal, right?
It's huge. It gives them access to one of the most valuable and rapidly growing streaming platforms in the world with a global audience. And it's not just about the size of that audience, it's about the quality of the data Netflix has.
Right.
They have a treasure trove of first-party data on their users, which is incredibly valuable for advertisers who are trying to target very specific demographics and interests.
And Magnite is the key to unlocking that data for advertisers.
Exactly. They're helping Netflix unleash the full potential of that data through their programmatic platform. It's a true collaboration with both parties bringing their strengths to the table.
Okay, another area I want to touch on is Magnite's focus on live sports. We've talked about this a bit already, but it seems like a really strategic move, especially as more and more sports content shifts to streaming.
It is live sports are one of the few remaining bastions of appointment viewing.
Right.
People still tune in live, and that makes it incredibly valuable for advertisers who know they're reaching a highly engaged audience that's not skipping the ads.
And as more and more sports content moves to streaming platforms, Magnite is perfectly positioned to capitalize on that shift. They have the technology to handle the real-time ad delivery that live sports require, and they have the relationships with the major streaming players to secure that inventory. It's a powerful combination.
Their expansion with Disney is a perfect example of this. They're now handling live sports ad delivery for ESPN and ABC News, two of the biggest names in sports broadcasting. It's a significant win, and it could be a sign of things to come.
It's exciting to think about what they might do next. What if they become the go-to ad platform for major sports leagues, not just individual networks? That would be a major disruption.
It would give them a dominant position in one of the most valuable segments of the advertising market. And it's not just about traditional sports leagues either. They're also expanding into esports, which is another rapidly growing market with a highly engaged and often very passionate audience.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about CTV data partnerships, live sports. Magnite seems to have a lot of momentum right now.
They do. They're firing on all cylinders. But as always, we need to add the disclaimer. This is not financial advice.
Mm-hmm. Right. Of course, we're just two podcast hosts exploring what's happening in the market. Don't base your investment decisions on our ramblings here. Do your own research, talk to a financial advisor, all that good stuff.
Of course, but hey, let's have some fun with it.
Yeah.
If you were going to make a bold, outrageous, but plausible trade based on what we've learned about Magnite, what would it be?
Ooh, good question. Given their strength in CTV and live sports and the trends we're seeing, I'd say go long on Magnite A&D, short on a traditional media company that's struggling to adapt to the streaming world. Think about those legacy cable networks that are hemorrhaging subscribers.
Now, you're talking high risk, high reward. It's definitely something to think about as these industry lines continue to blur.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the bigger picture and identifying those companies that are truly positioned for the future of media and advertising. On that note, we'll wrap up part 2 of our deep dive into Magnite's Q3 2024 earnings call. Join us for part 3, where we'll analyze their financials and explore some key takeaways for investors. All right, welcome back to Talk Tickers. We're wrapping up our deep dive into Magnite's Q3 2024 earnings call. And in this final part, I want to focus on what really stood out to me: their relentless pursuit of operational excellence. It's not just about growth at all costs. It's about building a sustainable and profitable business. It's like they're playing chess while others are playing checkers.
I agree that laser focus on efficiency is a key differentiator for Magnite. It's easy to get caught up in the hype and chase shiny objects in the ad tech world, but they remain disciplined, and that's reflected in their impressive cost management. Remember that 30% reduction in cost per ad request we discussed.
It's incredible.
That's not an accident. It's a sign of a company that's committed to running a tight ship.
It makes you wonder, are their competitors even paying attention in this economic climate? Efficiency is more important than ever, and it seems like Magnite is way ahead of the curve.
It's a real competitive advantage, especially as some of their rivals are grappling with profitability. Magnite's ability to manage costs effectively allows them to invest more in growth, pursue strategic acquisitions, or even return capital to shareholders.
Speaking of returning capital to shareholders, they did mention share repurchases during the call.
Yes.
What's your take on that? Is it a sign of confidence, or are they just trying to appease investors?
I see it as a strong signal of confidence in their future prospects. They're essentially putting their money where their mouth is backing themselves. to continue growing and creating value for shareholders.
And it demonstrates a commitment to creating shareholder value, not just blindly chasing top-line growth,
Right.
which is something investors always appreciate.
Absolutely. It's also a good sign that they're taking steps to manage equity dilution, which can be a concern for investors in growth companies.
Mhm.
It's about striking that delicate balance between growth and profitability, and Magnite seems to be finding that sweet spot.
Okay, let's wrap up by talking about Magnite's long-term outlook.
Hmm.
They seem to have a lot of momentum right now.
Yeah.
But the ad tech landscape is notoriously unpredictable. What are some of the key challenges and opportunities you see for them in the years to come? What should investors be watching for?
One of the biggest challenges, and this is something we've touched on throughout this deep dive, is the ever-increasing complexity of the ad tech ecosystem. It's a fragmented and rapidly evolving landscape with new players, platforms, and technologies emerging all the time. It's hard to keep up.
It's like trying to hit a moving target.
Yeah.
But Magnite seems to have a good handle on it so far. They're constantly innovating, they've built strong relationships across the industry, and their independent position allows them to be more agile and responsive to change.
Exactly. Their neutrality is a strategic advantage in a world where walled gardens are becoming more prevalent.
Right.
They're not beholden to any specific platform, so they can focus on what's best for their partners. That flexibility is key.
Okay, so navigating the complexity of the ad tech world is one challenge. What about opportunities? Where do you see the biggest potential for growth for Magnite in the long run?
I think CTV and live sports represent two massive growth opportunities. We've already discussed how these areas are rapidly growing, and Magnite is perfectly positioned to capitalize on those trends.
They're already leading the charge in CTV, and their partnership with Disney for live sports is a huge step in the right direction.
Right. And as more and more content consumption shifts to streaming platforms and as live sports increasingly become available online, Magnite's expertise in real-time ad delivery and their relationships with major streaming players will become even more valuable.
They're not just riding the wave, they're building the surfboard.
Yeah.
And I think their focus on curation, as they call it, will continue to be a key differentiator, as well as data privacy concerns become more and more prominent. Their ability to create highly targeted audience segments without relying on third-party cookies will be a major advantage.
It's a forward-thinking approach that sets them apart. They're not just adapting to the changes happening in the advertising world, they're shaping the future of the industry. It's an exciting time to be watching this space.
Absolutely. Magnite's a company that's worth keeping an eye on, folks. They're innovative, they're strategic, and they're executing well. But as always, this is not financial advice. Do your own research before making any investment decisions.
Always good advice. But hopefully our deep dive into Magnite's Q3 2024 earnings call has given you some valuable insights into the company, its strategy, and the broader trends shaping the future of online advertising.
That's what we aim for here at Talk Tickers. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the world of earnings calls. Until then, happy investing.